My parents really wanted to hold on to our Chinese heritage. Even though we were here in America, we were still distinct.
Christopher Yuan is the son of Chinese immigrants. Although he was born in the U.S., he never felt like he fit in with his American classmates.
Kids, they're always kind of cruel, and they pick on kids for being different.
He was small for his age. He played piano and worked hard in school and wasn't good at sports like the other boys.
I was shorter, I wore glasses, so I was four eyes. I was picked on because I was maybe a little more effeminate, because I was more artistic.
When he was 9 years old, Christopher saw pornography at a friend's house. That's when he started thinking, maybe he was different.
Those images were, just awoke something in me that I didn't know was there. But I also noticed that I was attracted to the images of both, of both the men and the women.
He decided to keep his feelings secret with hopes they would go away, but they didn't.
All these feelings were kind of bubbling up in me, and I was kind of keeping them held down, and I felt like I just needed to get it out somehow.
When he was about 20 years old, Christopher started going to gay bars.
So I was doing that kind of secretly behind my parents' back and my other friends. They didn't know, but I was, being more sexually active then at that point.
When he moved away for dental school, he decided to let his secret out and live the homosexual lifestyle full on.
At that point, I felt like I could really express myself and explore who I was and explore these feelings that I had kept hidden for so long.
Then one day while at home, he told his parents about his sexuality.
Yeah, the words was definitely not enough to describe how I felt. When he told us he was gay, I felt ashamed and betrayal, rejected, devastated, and just full of sorrow.
My reaction was that I feel that total hopeless, and I just give up hope.
The two began to pray for their son. He was a dental student by day, but by night, he was getting deeper into homosexuality and drug abuse.
I was traveling around the country and doing drugs and selling drugs, so I was missing more and more class. I really thought that I could kind of live a double life and have my drug life along with my school life and not let them interfere.
It wasn't long before the two worlds collided. He was expelled from dental school just 4 months before graduation.
Now that they expelled me, I just completely consumed myself with living in the gay community. I began doing what I knew how to do well and knew how to do best, and that was drug dealing.
He was making big money and having several sexual encounters each day.
I really, was treated like a superstar, and I felt that I was invincible, and I really felt like that I was God.
His parents refused to give up on him, even though he refused to stay in touch.
Every morning before I started my day, I will go into my prayer closet. And one of the prayer was, Lord, have mercy on this son.
The answer to that prayer came one day with a knock on Christopher's door.
I opened up my door, and it wasn't anybody that I had seen before, but it was 12 federal drug enforcement agents. Right behind me on my kitchen counter was all my drugs, and they really caught me red-handed. And I was charged with the street value equivalent of 9.1 tons of marijuana.
Just 3 days after Christopher went to jail, something in a trash can caught his attention.
I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and it was a book. And so I stopped and I bent over and I picked it up, and it was a Gideon's Bible. For the very first time, I opened up that good book. As I was reading it, I was really convicted of my rebellion, not only against the law and against man, but also against God.
Christopher learned that there were consequences to his actions.
So they sent me to the nurse's office, and as I sat in that room and I looked down at this piece of paper, I saw 3 letters and a symbol, and it read HIV positive.
He went back to his cell feeling like he had received a death sentence. He lay down and looked up at the graffiti-covered bunk over his head.
I noticed one thing scribbled there by someone, and it read, "If you're bored, read Jeremiah 29:11, which says, 'For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you.'" And at that point was probably the darkest and the most hopeless point in my life, after I was sentenced to 6 years, after I'd received news of my HIV status. God gave me enough faith that night to just simply get through that one day.
Christopher relied on God's help to get by, one day at a time.
It was during this probably year-long process that I surrendered my life to Christ, and that I knew that I no longer was going to live according to my ways and according to the ways of the world, but surrendering all my hopes and dreams to Him.
As his relationship with God grew, Christopher struggled to find justification for his homosexual lifestyle.
I turned to the Bible alone, and I went through every verse, every chapter, every page of Scripture looking for justification for homosexuality. I never found anything. So I was at a turning point, and a decision had to be made. It was either abandon God and His Word to live as a homosexual by allowing my feelings to dictate who I was, or abandon homosexuality by liberating myself from my feelings and live as a follower of Jesus Christ. My decision was clear and obvious, and I chose God.
Christopher was released from prison after serving his sentence. Today, his relationship with his parents has been restored. He's an instructor at Moody Bible College in Chicago and lives each day with purpose.
No person has ever been promised that we would have tomorrow. And yet, most of us, we live with the expectancy of tomorrow. But it took getting HIV for me to realize that I must live with a sense of urgency.
And he no longer defines himself by his sexuality.
My identity as a child of God must be in Jesus Christ alone. God was telling me, don't focus upon your feelings, or don't focus upon your sexuality, but focus upon living a life of holiness and living a life of purity. Being a Christian is not an easy thing. I may still struggle, but God has given me the grace. God has claimed the victory on the cross, that though I may still have struggles, I'm not going to be bound by them.